Sills, the defender of truth, justice, and the national football, and all of the things that go on in football, truth and justice reside here on the National Football Show. Always remember that. We welcome you aboard. I know there's so many options out there, and I can't thank you enough for coming here each and every single day like many of you do. And our show's a little bit different. I'll tell you the way it is, with very little emotion around it when it comes to making comments like I'm going to make here in a minute. Okay? Your guy, Eric Allen, once again being walked over for potential Hall of Fame honors when it comes to going into Canton. Rightfully so, too. Okay, rightfully so. We're getting Jason Cole on here because today the senior committee came out. So Steve McMichael is now a finalist to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame with only 2 Pro Bowls. And there's a guy by the name of Roger Brown who played on the Fearsome Foursome and played in Detroit, who has 6 and was one of the great defensive tackles during his time. They don't even consider him. But because McMichael is in Chicago and because he's ill, that doesn't make him a Hall of Famer or a sentimental guy when it comes to being a person that should get a gold jacket. Being sick has nothing to do with being a gold jacket guy. Jerome Brown's got more Pro Bowls. Does that make him a Hall of Famer also? You're diminishing the Hall of Fame when you're doing this shit. Steve McMichael's a good football player. But the Hall of Fame is not for good football players. The Hall of Fame is for the elite guys. I mean, end of the day, dude, how is Steve McMichael a finalist to go into the Canton Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame? It just doesn't make sense. Well, he's ill. So what? And I'm talking in the context of voting him in. Him being ill, I know, Mongo. I get it. That's a whole different conversation. His illness on whether or not the NFLPA should be taking care of him. You know where I stand with that. Tone and I were just talking about the Players Association. It's the worst union in pro sports in America. He'll take care of them players. But at the end of the day, this is a different conversation about the Hall of Fame. And I'm on those committees. You know I am. I'm on the committees I'm on panels that puts names. I would never put his name in a conversation for the Hall of Fame. I mean, look, and again, no disrespect to his illness, but that has no bearing on this conversation. Has no bearing. Just, it's crazy. By the way, another platform and one of the reasons I got into broadcast, and we're going to get into, hey, we're going to go Eagles and Cowboys here in a second, just so you know. But one thing that I got into broadcasting for back in the day was because of the way the NCAA, the National Communist Association of America, was so unfair, not just to me, but scores of other people. It was one of the major reasons why I thought athletes should be paid. I've been saying athletes should be paid for 30 years. 30 years of my broadcasting career, I was a Pied Piper in that. Now they are being paid, and I'm very thankful they are. You get your own image. You get to make money. The coaches can make $10, $15 million a year. Why can't the players? This is not a communist situation. The players should be able to do whatever. When I sign a scholarship, that doesn't give you right to have my likeness for the rest of my life. Anyway, so the NCAA is still standing on its hill with Reggie Bush because they're more irrelevant they're as relevant right now, the NCAA, as a payphone. And that's a hill you're going to stand on to keep Reggie's record. See what happens with the records. If you keep Reggie Bush out of the record books, he can't go back and get his Heisman. And for whatever reason, the Heisman Trophy people put it on the NCAA. If they clear him, he'll get his Heisman back. That's a hill you're going to stand on. That's a Jim Harbaugh and Reggie Bush are hills you're going to stand on when television networks have destroyed college football and the integrity of the game of college football. That's what you're going to stand on. It shows you how that organization is out of touch. The National Communist Association of America, the best day in this country when it comes to sports is when that thing ends. All right. Enough with my platforms there with that. I hate those people. They never had the kids' best interest, and they never will. And the NFL Players Association, I mean, guaranteed contracts. Dude. Players helping, other players. You would have thought it'd been a big deal. Anyway, all right, let's move on here. So I want to show you something before we get to Cowboys and Eagles here. Okay? Before we get to Cowboys and Eagles, how many people want to see Marcus Mariota replace his backup quarterback on the Philadelphia Eagles? Where's that list? Here it is. How many people want to see Mariota replaced? Mariota's cheeks. Tell me, do you want to see Marcus Mariota not as your backup quarterback? I'm going to make a point to you here. Okay? Hey, James, relative, with whom? McKee is QB2? No, he's not. Depending on the player, if he can run our system, yes. I want to show you something here. Tone, by the way, do you think the Eagles need a new backup quarterback too? So people in here, for the majority, you think the Eagles need a backup. A good backup, right? In case a disaster happens when it comes to Jalen Hurts. In case something goes sideways. I want to show you something here on what the league is right now. And then I'll close it up with my take here on this. Let's start in the AFC on the backup quarterbacks right now listed on the depth charts. The Dolphins. Do you want Mike White? The Bills. Do you want Kyle Allen? These are the number twos listed on the depth charts. Do you want Bailey Zappi? That's the Patriots' backup. Bengals, Trevor Siemian. Steelers, Mitchell Trubisky. Jags, CJ Beathard. Broncos, Jarrett Stidham. Chiefs, Blaine Gabbert. Raiders, Brian Hoyer. Chargers, Easton Stick. Or Stick or Slick. NFC. Giants, Tyrod Taylor, maybe. Bears, PJ Walker. I thought that was a gun. Packers, Sean Clifford. Vikings, Nick Mullins. Saints, Jameis Winston. If you like turnovers, he's your guy. Cards, Colt McCoy. Rams, Brett Rippon. Seattle, Drew Lock. Now, I didn't name all of them, but listen to those names. Who are you replacing Marcus Mariota with? Nick Mullins? Who are you replacing him with? Malik Willis is not being cut. Are you crazy? Vrabel loves that guy. They're not cutting him. Who in their right mind would think that Tennessee's going to cut Malik Willis? They want him to be the starting quarterback there. Not trying to cut him. He's not getting cut. He may be the starter by the second week of the season. These guys, who are you replacing? Hey, okay, I'm up for replacing Marcus Mariota. With who? Some guy that's going to get cut? Isn't Mariota the best option? Because there is no other option. You're not signing Carson Wentz. He's the best option. I'd pull the trigger on Aiden O'Connell. Who? Aiden O'Connell. So he's not even a second-team guy on any depth chart in the NFL. But he's your number 2? So we're going to wait for what? Trade for number 3. You think Aiden O'Connell is a better option than Marcus Mariota? I do not. Malik Cunningham, Belichick likes him. I don't think they're cutting him either. You have no option here. Howie is not going to make a move. They may sign a quarterback to go to the practice squad. They may do that. But you don't have any options here. Greg Ward is not a better option than Marcus Mariota. Is Mariota struggling with the Jalen Hurts offense? Yes. Don't you think any other quarterback that comes into Philadelphia is also going to struggle with the Jalen? This is the Jalen Hurts offense. One guy can run it, not 10. I don't think anybody can run that offense. Honestly, I don't think Patrick Mahomes could run that offense. Patrick Mahomes is not going to carry the ball 200 times in a year. He is not. You would have to change the entire way you approach first and second and third down. If Mahomes couldn't run the Jalen Hurts offense. He could not. He's not going to carry the ball in the RPO 200 times. Somebody do me a favor. Tell me how many times Patrick Mahomes ran the ball last year. I'd be curious to see if that number's even near 100. I'd be curious on how many carries he had last year with really a decent running back, not a great running back. There's not a chance in hell you have a better option. Your number 2 quarterback is Marcus Mariota. How about this? He's just got to play better. Hey, did it not take Jalen Hurts and the entire Eagle coaching staff 2 years pretty much to put that offense in play? The first year, they went through bumps and bruises, 2-5. Then they went to the RPO, and it started to mature. They went 9-8. Then the next year, the thing looked good. What would make you think a guy could walk in and all of a sudden run that thing in 2 weeks or 2 months, and you guys all of a sudden go, well, he's not the guy. Who is the guy? Who is the guy? Gardner Minshew couldn't run it. He's probably considered one of the better substitute teachers out there, too. I would have, we were talking, I would have rather have had Teddy Bridgewater. Jalen had 165 carries. Mahomes had 61 rushes. Think about this right there. That's 165 carries in 14 games, right? 15 games. I know he didn't run a lot the last game either because they didn't want to get him hurt. But he was averaging like 12 or 13 yard rushes like a game. So you add that on to 165, he was near 200 carries. He would have had 200 carries. If Jalen Hurts had played 17 games this year, he'd had 200 carries. You would have had two running backs with 200 carries. Sanders and Hurts. Mahomes ain't going in that offense in Philly and running the ball 200 times. Are you crazy? This guy ran the ball 3 more times than what Mahomes did in Kansas City. There's nobody out there that can run that offense. What quarterback do you feel that's out there right now that could carry the ball 200 times as an average, if you had to, and throw the ball 450? Show me. Mahomes is the guy. You have to come to grips with it. I do believe, look, Tyler McKee doesn't fit that offense. If you put Tyler McKee in that offense, your entire run game's gone. You think the Eagles want to sacrifice the number 2 run game? The last 2 years, the Philadelphia Eagles have been 1 and 2 in rushing. And you want to take that away completely? You don't have the running backs to take over if Hurts. Hurts is your number 1 running back. He is your number 1 running back. Or I should say this, he's your number 1 running back threat. Okay? I don't fear any of the other guys. I fear Hurts on 3rd and long because I can't account for him. Because if I take somebody away from A.J. Brown to cover Hurts, I'm not leaving that guy wide open on jump balls. Absolutely not. Jalen Hurts creates a mismatch. Tyler McKee doesn't. Tyler McKee takes part of your offense away from you. That's why he's not your number 2. He can't be your number 2. Tyler McKee cannot be your number 2. Your entire offense would change, and you would take a major component away the last 2 years. You're rushing. Hey, let's just do this. Let's make Tanner McKee, in case Jalen gets hurt, the number 2 guy. Okay, so if McKee has to go in for 4 games, you go from the number 1, number 2 rushing team in the National Football League the last 2 years to the 32nd. How many games do you think you're winning? None. That guy's not going to throw you into wins. He's not. Shit, coordinators would be grinding their teeth to get a piece of that guy. Kidding me? Hey, let's just take our rushing offense away. I heard people all day talking, yeah, let's just make McKee number 2. Like, that's something. That's not even a starter. I would say this, though, to you. I would want to see Marcus Mariota play the entire first and second half. Or first and second quarter. I want to see him play the first and second quarter. The entire first half, and then give McKee the 3rd and 4th quarter. Let him have that. If you want to put Book's ass in there, I don't know. Whatever. I don't really think he's anything. I never thought he was anything at Notre Dame. But I would want him to get as many reps as I can. So I would want to see Marcus Mariota play the first and second quarter on Thursday night. Okay? Dude, Cam Newton? Jesus criminy. Cam Newton? I mean, how about somebody in the present? I mean, speaking of like payphones, dude, you're talking about obsolete and outdated guys right now. Stay in the present with me, okay? Stay in reality with me here. Cam Newton. I mean, really. Let's stay in it now. All right. I mean, just look at these lists. It's a list of nobodies. And yet these guys are very important to the system that they're in, aren't they? Aren't they? Mahomes had 61 rushing attempts. He couldn't run that Eagle offense. Hey, could he play with the talent in Philly? Of course he could. But you'd have to redo your entire offense. And most likely you'd have to do it in a bye. So to give you 2 weeks to install stuff. Okay? Dude, just stick with Marcus Mariota. You have no other option. Okay? He's just got to play better. All right. How many people in here believe that the Eagles have a better defense than the Dallas Cowboys? I will say this to you right now before I even get started. The Cowboys have a better secondary than you. From one corner to the next corner, the entire grouping, they're better than you. Okay, they're better than you. The entire secondary as a group is better in Dallas than in Philly. 5-star goes were high. Well, let's take a look at that. I'm high. Your safeties are nowhere in the same room as the Cowboy safeties, and their corners are in your room. Okay? That makes them a better secondary as a unit. Let's take a look at this. Man for man. Shall we? Let's start at left deep. Let's stay in a 43 here so we can make it somewhat simplistic. Stephon Gilmore is not washed. He is not washed. If anything, Slay is. DeMarcus Lawrence versus Brandon Graham. Lawrence is a better player. Graham had a better season. Graham's 36. Who would I take? I would take DeMarcus Lawrence. He's been a better pro. And do I think Brandon Graham could do it again? I don't. By the way, we have goals for a lot of these players. We're going to do that also here. Check mark goes to Cowboys, DeMarcus Lawrence. Hawkins, left defensive tackle versus Jalen Carter. Who's better? This is unfair. Okay? The Eagles don't get the check here. But I can't give that to the Cowboys. Because in my heart, I think that kid Carter's better. But that's an opinion. That's not fact. He hasn't played like the kid Hawkins has. He's a pretty good run stopper. Okay, so I have to be fair to both here. Do I believe that Jalen Carter could be a Pro Bowler by the end of the year? Yes. Do I think Hawkins could be a Pro Bowler by the end of the year? I do not. Okay? You're right. I'm not going to overthink it. Right now, I would say that's incomplete. You have nothing to stand on but people telling you how good he's doing. And I am the one that told you I think he's the next Jerome Brown. But he hasn't played it down in the NFL yet. How could you justify that by that's an opinion. So we don't know that yet. That's why, hey, if anything, that's on the side almost of the Eagles here. You don't know. Carter not even close. Here's a guy that fucking just said that Carter and not even close and he's never played. How could you put that out there like that? Like, you know, just by what? Watching film at Georgia? That's a push. OC, the right DT for the Cowboys versus Fletcher Cox. Not close, Fletcher. Not close. Fletcher's a stud. Plain and simple. Micah Parsons, right defensive end versus Josh Sweat. I think this is closer than what more people would think. Okay? The only reason I go Parsons, he does more. He does more. It's the only. Sweat is not really a stand-up. It's kind of like the Reddick thing. So it's kind of like, I mean, would you compare TJ Watt to Nick Bosa? I'm going to pick Parsons here. Vander Esch versus Morrow. Cowboys. Damon Clark versus Nakobe Dean. Cowboys. Jabril Cox versus Hassan Reddick. Reddick all night. Stephon Gilmore versus James Bradbury. Three years ago, it's not close. It's Gilmore by a mile. He's defensive player of the year. I'm going to take Bradbury. As much as I don't want to, I can't look at Gilmore's resume, and I've got to be in the present. Stephon Gilmore is a Hall of Fame close player when it comes to his resume. Do you understand that? He's a Hall of Fame player. In 2019, he was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. So don't talk to me about Bradbury being better, okay? But today, he's more consistent. Plus, he only has to do one thing. That's play center field. Stephon Gilmore's a man cover guy. Your guy's not. How about this? Think about this for a second. James Bradbury's not a man cover guy. That's why he got fired in New York. He can't play man coverage. Actually, none of your corners can. That's why they play center field. They're not man cover corners. That's not what they're asked to do. And they can't do it. I saw it in the Super Bowl. I'm taking Bradbury though. He's more consistent. He's really a solid ball player. He totally is. Wow, James Bradbury over Stephon Gilmore. Again, I got to put the resume aside here. J-Ron Curse over Terrell Edmonds. Not close, Cowboys. Donovan Wilson, Reed Blankenship. It's Wilson. Trayvon Diggs and Slay. Slay was terrible last year at the end of the year. Diggs gambles too much. Slay plays in the system better, though, doesn't he, than what Diggs does. Diggs got to be kind of a freelancer. I don't like freelancers at the corner. So I'm going to take Slay. I don't like freelancers. You can't have freelance corners. Freelance corners, man, they get lucky, and most of the time they don't. Okay? Diggs is a better ball player, but he doesn't play fundamentally sound football. Diggs at least does what he's told. And I go with that. Okay? So, at the end of the day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cowboys, my opinion, personnel-wise, across the board, match up better than what the Eagles have. Now, the Carter thing could change. Dean could actually be a ball player. Clark's a good Mike. He's a good Mike linebacker. And on top of that, Dan Quinn's a better coordinator. Dan Quinn was part of the Legion of Boom. He built that up there with Bradley and Carroll. Built that defense down in Atlanta to get to a Super Bowl. Dan Quinn is by far a better coordinator than anything you have in your building. Okay? So, at the end of the day, the second here, I do believe your corners are better than the Cowboys. But as a group, the whole from one corner to the next corner, the Cowboys are better than you. Because it's close at the corner. It's not close at the free and strong. It's not close at all, actually. They got good safeties. I would say this, too. The Cowboys could have the best safeties in the league next to the Niners. They get pretty good free and strong safeties back there. They're hitters, too. They're good. And they can play. This kid Curse can play, man. They got better linebackers than you. They got better safeties. And they got a better defensive backfield than you. And a better coordinator than you. So the Cowboys, fundamentally, now, again, will Brandon Graham do what he's going to do? And personally, I'm going to say this about Reddick. I think Reddick is going to do what he does because he's done it for 3 years. Why wouldn't he? Graham doesn't have that on his resume. See, there's a sample size of Reddick doing it consistently every year. There's no sample size of that with Graham. There's none, actually. So you look at it, again, fundamentally, Cowboys have a better defense than the Eagles. Could that change because of the play of Dean? Blankenship. Yeah. Blankenship. Better hope Slay don't fall off like he did last year. You could say the same argument for Gilmore. You got to hope Blankenship, Dean, Carter, and Graham all play up to potential. These other guys were all starters last year. Cowboys are bringing back pretty much the entire group. And you know, I heard the guys on Sports Take go, well, you know, 3 teams in the NFC East on defense last year were really good against scoring defense. Yeah, because the shitty teams you played. How many high-powered offenses did people in the NFC East play last year? None. Vikings, Lions. Cowboys. Now, I would make this point to you. Cowboys have Lawrence, Parsons, Diggs, and Curse as playmakers. Jabril Cox can play too. I like him at the strong side linebacker. By the way, the linebackers in Dallas, it's not really close except for Reddick. Okay? Their linebacking core is pretty good. Now, Vander Esch has got to stay healthy. This guy's been in and out of the lineup, and it's like, this guy's always got some issue with him too. He's almost, not quite, the Rashad Penny of linebackers in the NFL. Okay? All positions are not created equal. Cornerback is more valuable than safeties. I just said that they have a better secondary, okay, than you across the board. And Slay's nothing to write home about now. I don't believe, hey, I'm going to flat out tell you, I don't believe that guy is near what he was in the first 8 games of last year. I do not believe it. I don't think that guy's all that hot anymore. And I want to see Gilmore over with Dallas too, in a good system. Because every time Gilmore's been in a good system, he's been a Pro Bowler. Okay? He's been a Pro Bowler. Dallas has wasted more talent than any team in the NFL the past 30 years. Correct. Imagine trying to downplay the entire NFC of the NFL. That's actually hilarious. Why? You are the lesser division and the lesser, you are the lesser conference. You are. Gilmore's washed, Slay's washed. Hey, Juju Smith-Schuster worked Slay. Juju Smith-Schuster worked him. So I go nuts here. Now, again, all I'll say one more time is that Dallas, again, they got a good group here. If Jalen Carter does what I think he will, the Eagles will have the second best defensive line in the NFL. Or, excuse me, in the NFC East, next to Washington. Washington's a better group. Okay? I think Washington's the best group. I think New York is probably the last, but they're good too. And I've been saying this for the last 2 months. I think the NFC East probably has the best front four, maybe potentially, of any division in the National Football League. I think there's some pretty good front fours in the AFC East also. Okay? Chip goes, this is trolling when I point out veteran leadership and veteran players in the NFL versus people who haven't done dick. It's not trolling. It's what it is today. I knew this would go here because most of you can't handle when things are put in front of you. When you see it for yourselves, you still want to deny it. You can't tell me shit about Jalen Carter here until you see him play. Do I think? Yes. But again, that's potential. Potential means you haven't done it. Means you haven't done it yet. It's the most overrated word used in professional sports. The playmakers on the Eagles are who? Reddick and then who? Sweat? So here would be your top 3 playmakers on the Eagle defense. Reddick? Sweat? Who else? Fletcher? Cowboys. Parsons? Diggs? Lawrence? Curse? Cox? Sully goes, he doesn't believe in the Dallas safeties. Well, you cannot believe in yours then. Those are good football players. Proven success of a year ago. You got new dudes in the room. I don't know what you're on different teams at different organizations. So as you get ready for the start of the season here, interesting. How about this? I don't know if they're holes anymore. My question mark would be, can Brandon Graham do it again? Is Jalen Carter as good as we think he is? Can Fletcher Cox put up the numbers he put up a year ago? I do think he can. Josh Sweat, does he continue to improve? I do believe he will. Nicholas Morrow, will he make the team? And personally, I think Zach Cunningham should start there. Nakobe Dean, can he play? Reddick, no issues. Bradbury, keep being James Bradbury. Terrell Emmons, does he fit? Is he an upgrade to CJ? Reed Blankenship, will he be able to play 17 ball games and replace Epps' 91 tackles? We'll see. Slay, is he out of gas? All things you're going to be watching this year. All things Howie's going to be watching. There is no question the number one pick in next year's April draft for the Eagles is going to be a corner and then edge rusher to replace Brandon Graham. And depending on what happens with Nolan Smith, if Nolan Smith, and we're going to talk about these guys here in a minute, if Nolan Smith makes a contribution this year, that could speed up the sundial on Hassan Reddick and what they do with him in 2 years. Eagles are not better at DT. You don't know that yet. Jordan Davis has not shown he's better than Hawkins yet. He has not shown he's better than him. He's got 19 tackles last year. The Cowboys were a good top 10 defense. Dude, what are you talking about? The only thing Jordan Davis brings to the mix is a big number 13 pick and a big name. He doesn't bring anything else because he hasn't brought production yet. Okay? All right. I wrote some goals down this year that I'd like to see. I think if the Eagle guys deliver these type of numbers, I think this football team could get back to your NFC championship game. Okay? And we kind of had a little bit of fun with it yesterday when we put up some numbers. And I like what Tone added. He goes, hey, Sills, just as long as you add Super Bowl ring to it all, that's all I really care about when it comes to numbers with Hurts or anybody else. So here's the whole list. I wrote down a whole bunch of these. And every player getting ready for the start of a season has personal goals that he would like to hit. Reasonable goals that you would like to hit. Okay? I put this down for Hurts. 3,800 yards, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 800 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns. He does that, he'll be in the conversation for the MVP again with those 800 yards and 10 touchdowns, 35 touchdowns total. That makes him the best RPO quarterback, in my opinion. And I do believe that will be better than the guy in Baltimore. I don't believe what everyone's saying out there. I don't think it's possible Lamar could have a better season than Jalen because he has before. But I don't know if Jalen hasn't closed that gap where he's just going to be too much to catch. Because I don't know if the Todd Monken offense of Baltimore is going to produce 3,700. I think the most he's ever thrown for is like what? 3,100, 3,200 yards. I mean, he hasn't put a shitload of yards up in a year. I get the 1,200 rushing yards that he put up. I understand that. But I don't remember him putting up like big time passing numbers. I get the 36 touchdowns. That was a huge number. 36 passing TDs, enormous number. That was his MVP season in 17. Okay? But that to me, this is who you're going to see the next 5 years who Hurts is. 3,800, 25, 6, 700 to 800 yards, 10. I think that's who he is. That's okay, though, because nobody in the NFL could run that offense at Philly the way he does. I think that makes him more valuable as a quarterback than a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, actually. Philadelphia would have to completely restructure that entire team, or at least the way they approach the game. They'd have to have more high turnover plays, which is chucking the ball down the field. That's not what they're doing. Okay? Here's my goals for Swift. 60 catches, 500 yards receiving, 8 receiving touchdowns. Might be high. I think with the talent around him, I think he can put those up. And I think 800 yards rushing. And I don't really care too much what his rushing TDs are. I care that he's more effective in the passing game. This is why I said yesterday, I think Swift fits the Eagle offense better than any running back that's out there. Maybe Christian McCaffrey. Maybe McCaffrey. Okay? A.J. Brown. This is reasonable goals. 80 catches, 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns. Anything above that, you're starting to talk career stuff again. Dan, think hunting down Brown will start this season? No, I do not. I think he'll eventually roll into a bunch of starts depending on who they play. Like, I'll tell you what I would do. If I'm playing the New York Giants, I'm starting Sidney Brown. If I'm playing, who else runs the ball a ton? What team runs the ball a ton? Like the Giant game, I'm starting his ass. I want him blowing up Saquon Barkley. I want to pound that guy, and I'm going to use him to do it. That guy would be nice and tenderized by the end of the game. So, Sidney Brown, Giants, I'm starting that guy all night long at safety. Put that guy up in the box on Barkley. Let him blow him up a couple times. Let's see if he wants to run through that line of scrimmage some more. Okay? Let's see how many times Saquon Barkley wants to get a full day of him. I think that might hurt a little bit. Okay? So I put him in the Giant game because I don't want him running around out there with elite wide receivers, but the New York Giants don't have elite wide receivers, nor do they have an elite quarterback. Would you put him in the Niner game? Probably. I'd probably start him in the Niner game. Would I start him in the Cowboy game? Cowboys aren't going to run the ball like they have in the past. Tony Pollard in between the tackles? What's more important for Dallas this year? Tony Pollard to get 238 carries, or Tony Pollard to be what I kind of just said that Swift should be? I think that's what they want him to be. They want him to be a better version of Swift. Okay? Week 1 against the Patriots? I mean, who's up there, right? That could be a thought. Let him slam into Stevenson and Zeke. I'll tell you this. I'd play Sidney Brown a lot in that game. It's Belichick, though, and it's O'Brien. These guys won Super Bowls together. Pretty good coordinators, both of them. I don't know. Might not want to put a rookie in a position like that. Now, hey, here's what you have in New England in week 1 that you always have to remember. There's better coaching in New England than talent on the field. And just because you got the great coaches, that doesn't mean you're going to win the ball game. It's going to make the game closer, but the Eagles are probably going to go into every single game this year with the least amount of experience when it comes to coordinators. But the Eagles will probably go into every game with the most talented team. Who would you rather be? I'd rather be the more talented team. Okay, so as much as I say New England's got the better coaching, I'm not sure how much that translates to the Patriots winning a ball game. I think it makes it closer, though. Okay? So maybe I would put Sidney Brown in that. Maybe I would put him in that Patriots football game. Devontae Smith, I got 100 catches and 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. I think this is the year that the Eagles get their very first 100-catch wide receiver in franchise history. Personally, I think by the end of the year, Devontae Smith will he be better than AJ? If Devontae Smith becomes better than AJ Brown, do you still pay AJ Brown $25 million? I'm not paying him to be the number 2 guy on my team. I'm not saying get rid of him. I'm just saying, what number 2 guy in the NFL makes $25 million? Can you name one? Can you name a number 2 that's in the NFL that's not on a rookie deal or he's making $25 million? I mean, are you going to pay your number 2 $25 million? Or will the Eagles do this? We get 2 ones. And you got to remember, next March, $50 million gets kicked in. Then you got to pay him the following year. They could address Devontae. Well, they can't. He's on a rookie deal. I wonder if they pick the option up. Wow. I wonder if they pick the option up on Devontae and don't give him a long-term contract. What would you do? I'd pick up the option so that I can get Brown for another year. And I don't mind paying what the 5th-year option is at wideout because it's lesser than what I'd have to pay both of them at $25 million. So I'd probably do that. Okay? They'll pick the option up. That's just smart business. They're not going to restructure a contract with the guy on the other end making $25 million and the quarterback's $50 million. Now, Hurts's cap hit is nothing in the first. I don't know. I think that's an interesting conversation this offseason. What will they do? I believe they'll probably take the option on Devontae, especially if he has a 100-catch season. And I think he's going to. I was wrong about him. He's fit in Philly well. It's the guy in Detroit that can't stay in one piece. That Jameson Williams kid, son, stupid moves, and you can't stay healthy. Okay? Stupid moves, and you can't stay healthy. Come on, kid. You got to start showing you can play in this league. I say this with Goddard. 75 catches, 950 yards, 5 touchdowns, somewhere in there. I mean, well, I think Tone showed us the number. What was it, like 60 some odd, high 60s%? 3 guys got the majority of the throws from Hurts. I would say that Goddard's in that 75 catch range, 950 yards, could sneak into that 1,000. Can you imagine if you had 3 guys with 1,000 yards? I'm not sure that's ever happened, has it? Let me think. Maybe the Dan Fouts, John Jefferson, and Joyner and Winslow was the last time that. Has that ever happened? 2,000-yard receivers and 1,000-yard tight end. Has that ever happened? Who the big catching? Tony Gonzalez? Did that ever happen in the NFL? You had a 1,000-yard receiver, 2,000-yard receivers, and a 1,000-yard tight end. I think the only team that I can remember are the Chargers team with Fouts. Fouts threw for 4,000 yards in that. I think it's the Winslow years too. I think it's the Winslow years. Okay? Yeah, I think it's Joyner, Jefferson, might even be Chandler. Shit, man, they may have had 3 guys at wide receiver get 1,000 yards and a tight end 1,000. Because I forgot about Wes Chandler there. Okay. That thing was fantastic. Quez Watkins, love to see him get 45 catches, 453 touchdowns. Quez Watkins, if he keeps that job, or how about this? Out of that 3 wide receiver hole, I'd like to see 45 catches, 450 yards, and 3 touchdowns, whoever it is. I'd like to see that out of there, okay? Let me get over to the defense. Brandon Graham. I'd love 8 sacks from him. Brandon Graham gets 8 sacks by the end of the year. You could move that check mark over to the Eagle side instead of DeMarcus Lawrence. If he puts that 8 up, I'd like to see him. Do I think he can get 8? I do. Okay. I'd like to see him get 8. Jalen Carter. And watch this here. Remember what we talked about with the Cowboy D-line? Now, look, this is opinions here. This isn't what the facts are yet. It's a difference from what I did with the Cowboys D-line versus the Eagle D-line. This is what I'm expecting. I got Jalen Carter at 7 sacks. If Jalen Carter gets 7 sacks, he could be the defensive rookie of the year. Jordan Davis, I'd like to see 4 sacks. 4 sacks from him would be a breakout year. 4 sacks would be a breakout year. Okay? Fletcher Cox. Why do I hang on that number 6.5? I'm telling you, man, he's such a freaking good player. He's such a good football player. Keith Saunders goes 4 sacks, pause. He hasn't had a sack in 2 years. Dude, Jordan Davis hasn't had a sack in 2 years. 2 years. I mean, he had, what was it, 4 in 43 games in 4 years at Georgia? You make it sound like this guy had 10 sacks a year at Georgia. He had 4 in 4 years. He averaged a sack a year. And all of a sudden, he's going to come to the NFL and he's going to get 14 sacks? Where are you getting that from? Where in the world are you getting that from? I've never seen a guy in college football who had 2 sacks a year or 1 sack a year go into the NFL and get 15 all of a sudden in 1 season. I've never seen that. That doesn't happen. Aaron Donald was a bitch and won the Outland and Lombardi Trophy and all that stuff when he was at Pitt. You're either a pass rusher or you're not a pass rusher. All of a sudden, a guy who had 4 sacks and averaged a sack a year is going to go into Philly and I'm giving him 4 sacks. That's more than he's ever had. More than he's ever had. Fletcher, I like him, man. Let me say this to you. Fletcher Cox, defensive tackle, is he better than Corey Simon? Yes. Is he better than Hollis Thomas? Yes. Is he better than Jerome? No. But could he play on gangrene? Yes. Fletcher's really a great ball player. I would say that Fletcher Cox in the last 40 years, going back to the Jerome Brown days, who were the tackles? Who are the tackles for the Eagles? This is the Pro Bowl list. I've showed you this before. My name's down there too. This is the Pro Bowl ballot. And the D tackles for the Eagles back in gang green, this is 87. Jerome Brown, Ken Clark, Mike Pitts, and Mike Gullick. Where would Fletcher fit in there? Him and Jerome would be the two best players. And I like Mike Pitts and Ken Clark. They were good football players. They were good football players. Big picking goes Fletcher's first team All-Eagles. Since 1980, there were some good DTs on that 1980 NFC Championship Eagle team, too. Well, I think Wilbur Jackson was on that. He was a good football player, too. There were some good DTs on that team. They had a good defense, too. Berge in the back there with LeMaster. Herm Edwards in the secondary and them guys. That was a good defensive football team. They had a bunch of really good players then. Clyde's a great defensive end. Clyde was a great defensive end. Okay? So, yeah, but Clyde Simmons is a great football player. But Fletcher Cox is going to go down. You can make an argument that he's like on the all-time first team defensive tackles. Him and Jerome. Jerome probably doesn't get the nod because he didn't play long enough. So maybe somebody who, but in my opinion, those are the two best that I've seen the Eagles have. And again, Wilbur Jackson was a good football player. I mean, there's some good defensive tackles on the 80 team. Okay, Corey Simon's a heck of a player, 9.5 sacks his rookie year. Hey, Tone, I'm going to finish up here, man. Right defensive end. I got Josh Sweat at 12 sacks. I'd like to see 12 sacks out of him. If Josh Sweat gets 12 sacks, he's going to be the all-pro end, not the Pro Bowl end. Okay? There's a shot Josh Sweat could be like Javon Curse, like Clyde Simmons, DeMarcus Ware, like that. I think he's a really good football player. And he's just getting better and better and better. Reggie White's a great end. And Bear, I know he went up and down. They moved him all over. Tilt nose, 2 technique, 3 technique, 5 and 7. So I know they moved him all over, but he was predominantly an end. I'd like to see 4 sacks apiece with Bradbury and Slay. I'd like to see 4 there, between the both of them. Nolan Smith. I'd like to see about 5 sacks out of him. I think he's got the capability. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Eagles figure it out. I think he's the Rubik's Cube this year. William Fuller was good. Surely was. He was a really good football. I think his best years, though, Kevin, I think they were in Houston with the Oilers. Okay? I think William Fuller's best years were in Houston. He's a good player, man. I knew William Fuller very well. Great player. Trent Cole's more of an end, not a defensive tackle. More of an edge rusher guy. We're talking edge rushers. Hugh Douglas is an edge rusher. I'm talking Fletcher when it comes to DT and DTs that you've had in your sport. Is this a fair goal for Kobe Dean? 120 tackles? 3 INTs? For the record, that's less than any year that TJ Edwards had as a starter in Philly. Okay, that's less than any year that TJ had. And so I've lowered the standards of the position. Okay, I mean, I've lowered it. Now, if Carter plays like he can, and the goals that we set for, by the way, if all these goals are set on defense, the Eagles will have accomplished this. You're better than Dallas. I was talking a couple moments ago about today, right now, because a lot of this we don't know. Is Reed Blankenship going to take over for 91 tackles? I don't know that yet. And so that's why you look at the safety position in Dallas and go, well, they're better because they've done it as a group. It's really not a rip. It's just who you have and who you haven't had. And again, there's more here. I guess to end this thing, there's more unknowns than there is in Dallas's defense with the Eagles. There's just more unknowns. Okay? So is that the story? We're going to hit on that in hour number 2 here. By the way, don't forget, we're going to talk to our guy Jason Cole, and we'll get his thoughts on the storylines that are going around the NFL. The final exhibition game of the year will be on Thursday. Hey, don't forget, we are doing our 40th anniversary and our celebration with our great friends at Hooters. This is their 40th year celebrating that great place. I mean, I was there at the very beginning with Ed Drosty and everybody in Clearwater when it first dropped, and everybody started going, what is this? What is this? And many of the same things that they do then are still being put out today, and that's why it's great to see that tradition sticks when it comes to Hooters. By the way, also, your fantasy draft parties, if you're looking to have a place for you to have those draft parties, please do me a favor, call ahead to any of the 7 locations nearest you in the Northeast area. You can go online to going to northeasthooters.com to find that one location nearest you. We're going to be doing a ton of stuff with the King of Prussia Hooters, and we just can't wait to see you guys out there with us each and every single month. The iconic Hooter girls are going to be there to serve you. Tuesdays, you buy 10 wings, you get 10 boneless free. Wing Wednesdays, how about this? 1983, all you can eat. Kids eat for free on Saturdays. Spectacular stuff. Now, I love this one. This is a great special, a 40-year tradition as well. 6 items, $6, your favorite draft, fried pickles, your sandwiches, your steamers. You can get it all there at Hooters. And again, go to one of the 7 locations nearest you by finding out on the website at northeasthooters.com to find that location nearest you. And do me a favor. When you go to Hooters, you tell them Big Sil sent you.